Hello there. Welcome to the first episode of my hopefully very long-term podcast series. I'm doing this because people tend to be watching videos a bit less these days, and I've been asked, following a poll, to do more podcast content. And I do prefer that because I'm a talker, and when I do videos, it's very hard for me to reduce my speaking, not go off on any tangents, which I can kind of do in a podcast a bit more freely. And in the videos, I have to play a lot because people want the visuals, of course. And so the podcast is, I think, a lot more my place. Of course, it's going to be at least half focused on feedback and content and requests. So my audience is going to be the reason this stays alive, hopefully, thanks to requests, especially for song analyses or theory. People might ask me to perform some of my compositions, and I may do some live composing in the episode, in future episodes. So there's many things that are going to be taking place. And of course, I have a life away from YouTube and the piano. And for example, I've been a card magician for 20 years, approaching 21. So I might drop some stuff in there because that's based on improvisation. I'm working on a couple of books which I'm writing. One of them is The Philosophy of Improvising with Card Magic. So hopefully, I'll be able to drop in a few other things and you can get to learn about me a little bit more. So I thought a good place to start in this episode was to get some momentum going. So what I did was I asked YouTube Analytics to give me the videos in order of what was viewed the most, but only from videos which I published many years ago, like from 2016, 2018, something like that. So there's about 100 videos on this list, and I've put them in order of views, which only come from the last year. At the moment, it's November 2024, so it's just the last year from now. This is going to give us a momentum of where to start, because what I want to know is what you want. There's a lot of song tutorials on here, how to play that song, how to play that song. And normally when I do the videos, I always like to focus on a particular element of theory or technique and use the song as a backbone for that. But what kind of concerns me a little bit is that the more popular views, the videos with the highest views are just tutorials. And unfortunately, you can't play a song if you don't have technique and you don't have theory. And you haven't mastered things in your mind, on your internal piano, as I call it, or your internal jukebox. I'll talk about these things maybe today and over the other podcasts. So it does make me see that I really need to push you and encourage you to focus a little bit more on technical exercises. It does not mean that you just sit down and play boring scales up and down. There's so many more things to do. You can make it a lot more fun. And it only needs to be maybe a sort of 70-30 balance, 70% being the actual repertoire, 30 being the technical stuff. Because no matter what you want to play, it's like an aeroplane, without the wings, you're not going anywhere. Even if you know where to go and you know how to fly the plane and you have the fuel and everything's prepared and you have destinations, if you don't have the wings or the engine, you're not going anywhere. So it's a bit like that. So I'm going to make this over two parts. And the first one, like I say, is going to go through about half of it. I'm just going to play some random things, talk about some things, and hopefully encourage you to tell me what things you'd like me to talk about more, and etc. You might be happy to know that I have a piano connected, so I can still play. I'm still at my keyboard with the laptop in front of me. That's how it's going to take place, so I can still play the piano for you. So the most popular video is Autumn Leaves. And of course, it's one of the most popular jazz songs, so that's why it's, at the top of the list, I guess. Fine. But you can't play it unless you have the chord knowledge, which is theory, the technique, which is, technical exercises. So maybe in episode 3, I can talk to you about the importance of technical exercises and how to make them a lot more interesting. But conversationally, not just technically at the piano. The next popular video is My Favorite Things, which is another jazz thing. And then As Time Goes By, all jazz songs. Now, here's one. The 251 Progression Mastery. 251 in all 12 keys. In that particular video, I gave you enhanced chords as well and some extensions. But 251 stuff is so important, it cannot be expressed in words. 99% of jazz repertoire is built upon the 251 progression. In every key, you just need to know the 251s. that one's in D flat. I'll do it in A. So B minor 7, E7. And I'm enhancing the chord each time. So you have to know at least the letters of each 2-5-1 in each key. That takes time, maybe just a few weeks. And a lot of it can take place away from the piano. So what you are to do, for example, one thing is I'd like to also give you some homework sometimes, stuff to do, in your own time between episodes. So one thing is to get these 2-5-1s down once and for all. You can only master 2-5-1s if you know the major scales, which is why major scales are absolutely paramount to my philosophy, water pianism. Everything comes from major scales, and the 2-5-1s are no exception. So you will go around the cycle of fourths. It's always good to internalize the cycle of fourths. And the 2-5-1 itself is a cycle of fourth movement. So the key of C, if you can imagine the piano in your mind, the D is the 2, the G is the 5, and the C is the 1. Fine. But you only know that if you know the scale. And the interesting thing about the cycle of fourths is that the D to the G, which is a 2 and a 5, within themselves, the D to G is a fourth. And then the G to C is also a fourth interval. So you can't really escape the movement of going up a fourth, which happens a lot in jazz. So spend time connecting emotionally with 3 letters for each key, because you just need. So if someone says, what's the 2-5-1 in F? The G and the C and the F, they're grouped together. They just look right. So this doesn't take a long time. You just do 1 or 2 a day and you'll be done in 2 weeks. If you say E flat, the F and the B flat are instantly there. So that is a memory item. In B flat, it's going to be C and F. Those 3 letters just go together. In the key of D, it's an E and an A. E, A. In the key of A flat, it's B flat and E flat. So it's not that I know that. It's just, it's so ingrained in me that, you just can't forget it. It's just like riding a bike. So do spend a lot of time internalizing and getting used to, or familiar with, the 3 letters that go as the 2-5-1 in all the keys. And you really have to do it in all the keys. You can't escape. Just go around the cycle of fourths. So you'll do it in the key of C, which is going to give you, of course, D minor 7, G7 and C major 7. And then you'll move up to the key of F and do its 2-5-1, G minor 7, C7, F major 7. Go up a fourth to B flat and do its 1, C minor 7, F7, B flat major 7. Go up to E flat and do its 2-5-1, F minor 7, B flat 7, E flat major 7, go up a fourth to A flat, etc., 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 and just go around all the keys. So that's very, very important. So I'm glad that video is quite high up, because it means people are aware that they need to learn it. The next video along actually is the power of the circle of fourths and chord progressions. So there you go. They go together, and I'm glad they're quite high up. Another tutorial, Dream a Little Dream of Me, okay. And then I've got a video called Absolute Chord Mastery, every chord type. That's a good video. And mastering chords is so, so important in all the keys. Again, major scale mastery helps. It's a good idea. So these are going to be future episodes. Chord mastery, again, it doesn't mean about being able to play them on the piano first. It's best to learn them in your mind first. And then when you're at the piano, if you can't do it in your mind, you can't do it at the piano. So you need to get the template first. This leads me also to actually, I just see it now, just 2 videos lower is the chord inversion philosophy. And it's called, the subtitle of that video is, There's Nothing to Remember, because there isn't. If you just learn the template of a chord type, and okay, there's about 20 of those, but even if you just get down maybe 6 to 8 of them, common ones, and you just remember the template of that, starting on the root. So let's just take the major 7, 1, 3, 5, 7. To say you've mastered your major scales, we can do it in any key. I'll do it in the key of A flat. So you can see the 1, 3, 5, and 7. So when you're walking around, you can visualize, okay, 1, 3, 5, 7 in the key of A flat. Okay, A flat, C, E flat, G. And drill it in your mind. Your mind is a muscle. It needs to be worked out. And then you can play those 4 notes in any order. You could start on the E flat from those 4 notes, which is the 5th, and go E flat, G, A flat, C. That would be called the second inversion, but it's still A flat major 7, assuming there's an A flat, in the bass defining the key. So you play in any key, in any order. So you might play it as a G, A flat, C, E flat. It doesn't have to be in root position, but I haven't memorized all of these shapes and positions. There's thousands and thousands. That takes far too much time. So all I know really in my mind is the template in root position, I know all the major scales instantly, as I really want you to be able to do very, very soon. And then I just pick out the notes in any order I want. I could play it as C, E flat, G, and A flat. You just see the notes everywhere, which leads me on to a nice exercise which I call poking, where you just pick a chord type, pick a key. So let's just do minor 7. So you know the template is 1, minor, the flat third, 5, and the dominant 7, the flat 7, in the key of F. F, A flat, C, E flat. Okay. Then you don't need to remember the inversions. You can just see them. You don't even need to worry about naming them. That's very much secondary. But you poke them with your index finger, and so I'm going to poke only those 4 notes, not thinking about F as the root necessarily. So I want to go A flat, E flat, C, F, E flat, C down here, A flat, F, E flat, up an octave to that E flat, C, A flat, F, jump to an F here, down to a C, E flat, A flat, down to the A flat, E flat, C in the middle. I'm poking the chord because I can just see it all over the piano. So there's not one root position. That's why it's so easy. That's what gives you a fluency when you're playing. So if you're playing a song that happens to have F minor 7 in it, and it just lasts, to say 4 bars, when you're improvising, you can just see all the notes. You're not thinking about it. If you're accompanying a singer, you can just play, you can just break up the chord like that because you just see all the inversions at the same time. It just doesn't matter. I'm just playing those 4 notes. I see them everywhere. I don't care what the inversion is. I'm just seeing the root position template, 1, minor, 5, flat 7, and I see it everywhere. You apply it to the major scale mastery, and you can play any chord in any key, and it really is that easy. It takes a bit of time, but the process is easy. We have Tenderly, lovely song, another jazz, another repertoire piece, okay. Extensions and upper chord structures is nice. I'd like to make a nice talking point on that. The idea of upper chord structures is that you get these very tasty kind of chords, and they all sound very, very nice. The idea is that you put a triad on top of at least 2 notes in the left hand. So, for example, if I wanted to play, these are fancy chords, so they're quite complicated. It enters. These are the extensions take place outside the octave. So just keep it simple in the key of C. If I want to play C flat 13, flat 9, this sound, this top part, I'm playing D flat, E, and A flat, which is the flat 9. The 3 is just running up on the 3rd, doubling up on the 3rd, and then the A flat, which is the flat 13. What you do is you remember these little they're like cheat sheets in a way, just cheat codes. So in that case, what I'm doing is I'm playing a minor triad on the flat 9. So if I'm in the key of F, the flat 9 is G flat, so play G flat minor, and you get exactly the same sound. So it's that kind of logic. But I'll go into that in a lot more detail. So maybe you're interested in upper chord structures, and there's some that you just remember and you just don't forget them. For example, another one, if I play like a C7 chord, and I play a major triad on the 9, not the flat 9, but the 9, a major triad on the 9, I get this lovely jazzy sound. And you can end a song like that, blum 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 blum. So you might think, wow, lovely, sweet chord. How are you doing that? Well, okay, I'm playing the D is a 9, F sharp is sharp 11, and A is 13. So that's all the triad, that's all the extensions, basically, all the main ones, the unaltered ones. But I'm just playing a major triad, D major, based on the 9. So you just do that instantly anywhere. E flat 7, the 9 is the F, play F major. Exactly the same sound. So you're in the key of E flat, blah, 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 play the B flat as the 5 chord, and then resolve, and just finish like that. This is how you get the sweet jazz sounds. So upper chord structures combined with extensions, very, very interesting. Then I've got a ragtime one here. It's the right hand of ragtime. A lot of people ask me about ragtime. It's quite a popular video topic, but it requires quite a lot of practice. The hard part is not necessarily the actual stride, where you're just sort of playing a bass note, a D in this case, and a D7, the left hand can be also an octave. And then you put the third in the bass, so an F sharp in the bass, D in the bass, up to D7, F sharp in the bass, D7. That's your kind of, But the hard part is also a syncopation. So in this video, I'm talking about that syncopation, which is quite interesting and quite a bit of fun to play around with. Blue Moon is a nice song. But that's the sort of subtitle of that one is with the blues scale, which is a very nice topic. So we'll do lots of blues because we can't live without blues. Blues is very important. Get your blues scale. You need to listen to a lot of blues as well, not just on the piano. Where are we? I Love You Porgy. Okay, another one. Common piano style techniques to master. Well, we'll do lots of talking about that as well. And again, I'm going to recommend lots of pianists because it's interesting that there's jazz theory is jazz theory. You've only got 12 notes and a couple of chords, really. But it's amazing that there are quite so many jazz pianists, and yet you can identify them within 5 seconds, most of them, who's playing. So there's so many ways to play the piano, even if you're all playing the same notes. I mean, there's 1,000 recordings of people playing Autumn Leaves, Ain't Misbehaving and all that, but they're all playing it completely differently. So there must be something going on there. So there's lots of styles to master. So we'll be talking lots about that as well, the left and the right hand. Next video down is staccato, legato and pedal. Yeah, this is an interesting one because the pedal does cause problems and it's very hard to teach it unless, if you're learning classical music, then the sheet music will tell you exactly when to play the pedal. So that kind of helps. It's sort of part of you learning the piece. But when you're playing freestyle and jazz, it's a bit harder to know when to play it. I've always said 2 things. One, use it as a timer. So you're just kind of, like if I do this ragtime, left hand, there's no pedal here. If I do it with the pedal, it's down here, the sound continues, I play the chord, but then I lift it up just then and put it down again on the F sharp and keep it down. So the first thing is I'm using it as a timer, so it's like down, up. It's hard to speak at the same time, but it's like down, up, down. So I'm kind of going like down, up, down, down, up, down, up, down. So I'm using it as a metronome in a way, a timer. The second thing is, if you're playing freestyle, just, I don't know, Fly Me to the Moon, the infamous one I always use. So it's down, up, down. So I'm like, you lift it up when it gets too muddy. Because if I just keep it down the whole time, everything mixes together and it sounds ghastly. So use it when it gets muddy. So I'm going to hold it down now. Up, down. Up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. So I'm not using it as a timer. It just gets too muddy. The chord is changing, the key is changing, the melody goes to use other notes, lift it up and put it down again. Now, the next one up is perfect rolling arpeggios. That is one of my styles where you just do that kind of thing. It might sound very, very impressive, but it's not. The technique behind it isn't too hard. Here I'm playing a 6 chord, of course it's in both hands. You simply, I call it the thumb, what's it called? Octave jump with the thumb. So if I'm playing C, E, G and A, the next octave has to be perfect and can only be perfect if the thumb lands on the C quickly. So this is a nice technical exercise where you just play the chord, it could be any chord, C minor 7. It doesn't matter. You're playing C, E, G, and A, but then the thumb has to jump up to the next C. So just stop on that next C to get used to that thumb on the ascending part, accurately landing on the C. So C, E, G, A, C with the thumb. Thumb, 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 thumb. because the next one, the fingers are just kind of there automatically. And on the way down, my ring finger's playing an A. So the ring finger has to do the perfect jump down to the A. A, G, E, C, A, the ring finger, starting on the ring finger, there. So these are the kind of things I was doing for years. And doing it in C, again, C6 with the left hand, the little finger is going up. And going down, it's the thumb on the A. So you need to get used to doing that kind of thing, which is good fun. Another tutorial, my absolute major scale mastery playlist. Please watch that. It's only 12 videos. There's one for each key. And each video is only about 5 minutes long, apart from the first one, which explains the whole thing. So the key of C, video 1 is longer than the others. But each one gives you a little slightly different exercise or a new exercise. You're learning it visually. You're creating emotional connections to the shape and the sound and the feeling. You can learn the scale by seeing it as an image on the keys. Of course, you'll memorize it away from the piano as well and visualize it on your internal piano. And you can just do so many things. I like to say use and abuse major scales. And you really can. Here's another 251 video. Great. We'll talk about that a lot. Target note philosophy is a jazz improvisation thing where you basically in improvisation, and I've studied a lot of the great jazz pianists and I've seen what they do visually, and you see transcriptions, and I used to do my own transcriptions as well. And what I came to notice pretty quickly is that probably, I've said it in videos as well, maybe 70% is notes of the chord. 60-70% is notes of the chord. So we just take the simple D minor 7 to G7, just so in case you want to follow along. An improvisation will be 60-70% those notes, D, F, A, C. It already sounds kind of fun. I'm only playing the same 4 notes. Little, sliding off another black note nearby, but I'm still playing D, F, and A, and C. But the target note philosophy is where you consciously choose a note of interest, a target note, and that might be a flat 5, which is bluesy, that kind of thing, and you might use it to pivot to the next chord. So, for example, if we're doing that, we're going to go to G7 next. I might just play some notes of D, F, A, and C, D minor 7. Okay. As I fall onto G7. So I'm using it as a pivot note. So it's a target note. That's quite an interesting way to learn how to improvise. The next one says improvising with a chromatic scale. Of course, a chromatic scale is just simply all the notes, but you can use it to learn how to improvise by learning how you naturally make patterns. It's interesting. So I'm just going to use the notes of the chromatic scale anywhere on the piano, and there's no key, there's no chord progression, there's nothing. You might sort of have a metronome or feel a rhythm. And let's just imagine I've got a little swing rhythm going on, and I'm just going to only play chromatically. Like that. It kind of sounds fun in a way. If there's some good chords going on underneath that, it might sound pretty cool. But I'm only playing chromatically. And it's interesting. But it's interesting to see how you play. And if you notice how I play, there's a regular rhythm that comes out. See, I like to kind of go, there's like diddle-da-da-da-da-da. That is kind of my improvisation style. Everyone has their own kind of signature. That's what I'm saying earlier. Jazz pianists, you can identify them within 5 seconds. And I think if you heard me playing something, I'm just playing any notes, but I have a kind of that kind of it's like a little bit of tension. It's sort of quick, and then it slows down a little bit, and then it goes quick, bit of space, because space is also a note. So we all have our own style. I've got some technical exercises to break your brain. It's really good to do technical exercises where things are not symmetrical. So, for example, doing scales, but with an interval. So maybe instead of playing chromatically apart, like C and C, I'm just playing C, to C chromatically from the left and the right hand. It's quite easy to do that. But if you play a third apart, playing an E in the right hand and a C in the left hand, then it's going to go black note in the left hand, white note in the right hand, black in the right, white in the left, So you're playing out of sync. And it's a nice idea to get used to doing those kind of things as well. Another one might be two different chords in both hands. So you might play just major 7 chords, but do them in 2 different keys. So the left hand might play C major 7, and the right hand might play G major 7. Okay, it might sound nice sometimes. And the left hand might go E flat, and the right hand might go A. That kind of thing. And you can choose, which chord types to do. Just things like that. Another one is like a timing thing where you might play double speed with the right hand. So you might just take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, C, D, E, F, G, do it in any key. But the right hand's doing 2 notes. And then you switch hands and do the slow one with the right hand as the left hand goes fast. That kind of thing. So just things to break your brain. It's like tapping your head and doing a circle with the left hand. Your brain has to be in 2 places, but you see them as one. It's interesting because, of course, we don't have 2 hands. We have 10 fingers. Another tutorial, ragtime, the other part. Oh, yes, the one jazz piece. This is kind of a popular video. The idea is that most jazz is based on almost the same structure, a bit like pop music. And that is generally in jazz. You'll start on a 1. I'll do it in the key of C just so you can follow a bit more easily. Before you start mastering all your keys and chords, then I'm going to start doing stuff in other keys just to challenge you. But I'll keep it simple for part 1. So generally you're going to play like a C6 or C major 7, like just a chord 1, and it's going to go 6, 2, 5, 1 probably. So A minor 7, like most jazz songs do. D minor 7, G 7. But then it might go 3 to a 6. And then the 2, and then the 5, okay. But then it might go, after the 1, it's going to go up a 4th, up to F for sure. Now, sometimes here, you're going to go up another 4th, or the 4 becomes a minor as it goes back to 1, and then 6, 2, 5, 1. So that it's just so common that when you're learning a new jazz song, you should already know it 80%, because it's going to be based, 90% is going to be based on 1, 6, 2, 5, 1, or at least a 2, 5, 1, or at least a 3, 6, 2. It's going to do a 2, 5, 1, but not onto the root. It might do a 2, 5, 1 onto the 4. So it might go C. And then instead of just going up to F, it's going to land on F, but via F's 2, 5, 1, which is G minor 7, C7. So I'll just do that now. C7 onto F. So it goes to it in a more interesting way. So there's certain things that happen so frequently in all the jazz repertoire where you kind of know every jazz song in a way already, 80%. All you need to do is learn the melody and the key it's in. So we can talk about that a lot. I have a video here where I talked about how I got where I am and how you can get where you want to be. I think that might have been a podcast episode, actually, like an old audio one. But I'm more than happy to answer these questions again for new people or if you've forgotten. But extremely quickly, I had a music teacher at school who was playing some sort of freestyle jazzy things, and I asked him where the sheet music is, and he said, I don't need any, just playing what I want. I said, how do you do that? He said, well, I know the scales, I know the chords, I know the progressions, and I just do what I want. And that was unbelievable to me. So he said, well, learn the major scales. That's where it kind of comes from. Maybe he doesn't realize his impact on me, but it certainly had an impact. And so, yeah, it's just like major scales. The note values of those major scales, the chords and the progressions are based on those. You can't go wrong. And I just started from there. And then I started to listen to lots of jazz, and eventually discovered Franz Liszt for the technical stuff. And, just onwards and upwards, I guess. I have a piano challenge as well, Dan the Composer's Piano Challenge. Some of you might know that. It's where I have you going through the most popular chords and the major scales of all the keys. I recommend finding that on YouTube, Dan the Composer's Piano Challenge. There's a video where I explain it, and there's a video of me doing it. But we can talk about that in future episodes as well. I'd like to revive the piano challenge and see how many of you can do it and post it as well. So major scale stuff, another tutorial, some fancy chord stuff. Of course, we're going to talk about nice chords. Skylark, a new progression. Yeah, Skylark is a lovely song. Let me find it. It's in the key of E flat. It starts on, okay, I'm just listening to it. So it's, yeah, up to 4, yes. To 1. Then there's this lovely chord as it falls back down to the 4 again. And in that tutorial, I talk about that Skylark chord. This is an A7 flat 5, and it falls down to A flat. There's a whole reason behind that, which I won't go into now, but it's a very nice chord progression to learn anyway. 1, I'll do it in the key of G, up to chord 2, up to chord 3, A minor 7, B minor 7, C major 7, back to 1. Then a semitone drop onto C, so that would be from C sharp, but as a 7 with a flat 5, like this. Very, very nice. So yeah, you can get some lovely, there's certain jazz songs which have got really lovely chords in them. There's a video on handling jazz lead sheets, which we are absolutely going to do quite a lot. And I'd like, because when you learn jazz repertoire, you're learning it away from the piano first, even classical actually, with the lead sheets, with the sheet music. But in jazz, you'll study a lead sheet away from the piano, you'll get the song on your internal jukebox, and you will not go near the piano. It's how I do it, it's how I've always done it. You don't go near the piano until you know the song absolutely in your mind, internal jukebox. And you've heard many versions, you've chosen a favourite version, could be any instrument, and you just know exactly how it goes, the structure. Knowing the lyrics helps as well. And then you get the lead sheet, and you can hear the song playing in your mind as you hear the chords, as you read the lead sheet. And you notice the chord progressions. You can see the 2-5-1. You can see the 4th. You can see the 2-5-1 onto the 2, onto the 6. You can see the interesting chord. You can see how a 2 chord is often a dominant 7 chord with a major 3rd, and then it becomes minor. That happens quite a lot. You can see how a whole diminished chord, which are lovely chords, how they are used between 2 other chords, especially like D to G to C. Instead of playing G7, you'd play D minor 7, D flat or C sharp whole diminished, and land on C, which is nice. There's lots of different things to do. Or 3 to 2, that kind of thing. So whole diminished, half diminished as well. You can find all these nice, when you study the lead sheet, you'll identify and you'll recognize all these common chord types and everything. And because you've been mastering the 2-5-1s, they stand out like a sore thumb, because the 3 notes, as I said earlier, the 3 letters of each 2-5-1, when you see a B flat minor 7, it's a minor 7, so it's probably going to be the 2 of A flat. So is the next chord E flat 7, which is the 5 chord of A flat? It probably will be. So there's the 2-5-1 in A flat. You know, they just stand out to you. Another tutorial, okay. Removing conscious interference, one of my favorite topics. Conscious interference kills fluency. That's me saying it, that's not the title, it's just true. Conscious interference comes from a couple of places. One is not truly knowing it. You subconsciously know if you know the song or not. You know if you know what the next chord is coming up. You know if you know the melody shape over the keys. You know if you know that before you even play the piano. So be honest with yourself before you play, because this is why many people give up. They only learn at the piano. And the piano doesn't care about you. The piano isn't going to teach you anything. The piano is just a lifeless box, whether it's plastic or wood, and it's just sitting there looking at you. It doesn't care. It's not going to help you with anything. It expects you to know everything already. So don't go to your piano expecting it to teach you anything or expecting to make any progress if you haven't done that work away from the piano. That's why the Walter Pianism philosophy goes mind, body, piano. And the piano could be any instrument, by the way. You have to do stuff in your mind more than at the piano. And I would say it's probably like 60% in the mind, 30% body, 10% piano. Really do consider that. So you'll remove a lot of conscious interference just by knowing that, being honest with yourself, that you truly know the song, or that you truly have the technique available to achieve that passage in that piece, you know, a Chopin piece or Rachmaninoff piece. So one big reason for conscious interference is a subconscious knowing that you don't really have the knowledge or technique to play the piece you want to play, which is easily fixed. Spend time on it. You know? Another reason for conscious interference is that you are overlooking at the keys, which is why I always say to people to do technical exercises and even learn melodies and chord shapes with your eyes closed, or in a dark room, or wear a blindfold if you can't keep your eyes closed. Your fingers will find their place much more convincingly and with more precision if they learn how to do it themselves and not with your eyes getting in the way. If you sit in front of the same note every time, you'll get more used to it. Don't keep sitting in different places. I always sit with the middle D pointing to my belly button. That I'm just used to that. I could probably get away with if I was sitting, I could probably play the piano generally sitting anywhere, but I'd have to really use a lot of conscious interference because I'd be off center. So if I sit, as long as the D, generally I do actually actively make an effort to put the D pointing my belly button. Normally when I make videos I can't because I have the tripod next to me, so I'm offset like up to the F or the G. But it's okay, I'm kind of used to that now as well, to be honest. But just always get used to sitting in front of the same note, because then your arms, they just know where to go. It just feels right. If I play, I don't know, B flat, it just feels right. I can't explain it. If I just go up a tiny bit to D flat, that also feels right, because I'm now able to sit directly in front of that D in the middle, and it just, feels correct. So that will help with conscious interference as well. Eyes closed, sit in front of the same place, play all these different scales, even chromatically, and your hand just knows where it's going. It's like you've got 10 eyes on the ends of your fingertips. Very interesting. We have accompanying techniques as well, which we can, of course, talk about. It's nice to accompany people. I talked a little bit about that earlier, where you play a chord type and you can play it in any inversion. So you'll kind of sound like Elton John. If you watch Elton John play, he'll play chords. He normally just plays major and minor triads. But he when he's doing all these kind of runs, this kind of that kind of Elton John sound, he's just doing an inversion. E flat, G and B flat there, then I'm playing B flat, I'm playing G, B flat and E flat, then I might play B flat, E flat and G. I'm just running down in these inversions. But I'm not thinking, this is the second inversion, that's the first inversion, that's the root. I'm not thinking like that. I'm just thinking, these are the three notes, I can play them wherever I want, however I want to. So accompanying is quite nice. Pinky bouncing through chords is absolutely one of my favourite things to do. I did it for hours and years. In my late teens or mid-teens when I started, I was sort of 15 or so, 14, 15, 16, I was always doing it. You take any chord type, both hands, and you bounce. I call it the pinky bounce for the left hand, but in the right hand it's the thumb bounce, but it doesn't really sound as exciting as pinky bounce. And you just bounce up, using that one chord to prove to yourself that you really can see that chord type immediately in each key. You can do it around the cycle of fourth. It's just a bit slower because there's more jumping. So C to F to B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, etc. But it's quite nice to just do it around chromatically. Do minor 7, and you just bounce up like this. Really great exercise. And your mind is thinking ahead, which what chord, what key to play next, that chord type. And your fingers just land on it. It's a very nice way to confirm that you know the key. So you're just being pushed along, pushed along, pushed along. Do I know major 7s? Do I know D? Do I know E flat? Yes. Do I know E? Do I know F? Your fingers just land on the right one just before you get there. So yeah, pinky bouncing is good. Another tutorial, ain't misbehaving. A couple of ways to play 2-5-1 again. The piano challenge thing. I think we're kind of about halfway now. So another tutorial there. How to embellish a jazz melody. Another tutorial. So yeah, that's generally the most popular videos which have sort of stood the test of time since they were recorded in, I don't know when it was, 2017, 16, 17, 18 or so, which have been viewed in the last year, in other words, basically all of 2024. So hopefully that's given you quite a lot of stuff to think about. And in the next episode, I'll just continue that list because I'd really like to just show you all the kind of content that I've got available on my channel. It might encourage you to go and find some of it, and hopefully that will benefit you. I'm very much looking forward to the feedback for the questions you might ask me. I'm very much looking forward to showing some compositions and things, to writing new ones, even live in the podcast. I might say, for the final 15 minutes or even the first 15 minutes. That I'm just going to try and add a little bit more to a composition so you can see it really taking place. When I compose, I've taught on the channel, and it's my philosophy that there's 3 ways to compose. I don't want to go into all that right now, make it too long, but I use the third one, which is where I don't. One of them is trial and error, where you just sit at the piano and just kind of just sort of go, oh, that sort of sounds nice, and then this sounds, that sounds interesting. Just trial and error. No. I hear the melody in my mind. It comes with an emotion, and then I know what chord type gives that emotion. I don't have perfect pitch, which may surprise you, but I eventually work that out on the piano, or I find a key which feels nice. I write in any random key. And so for me, I hear it in my mind first, and then I find it on the piano. So for me, it's very much what I call, it just comes from my inspirational source, whatever that is, wherever that is located, and I listen, and it just comes in. It's kind of meditative in a way. So one of my compositions, which I called Middle Way, I agree I'm not the best titleist, but I could hear this. All my compositions are on SoundCloud, and I'll go through them over time anyway, because I'd like to relearn. I'd like to relearn all of them and re-record them properly, maybe refine them a bit, tighten them up a bit. So that will probably happen at some point, and maybe this podcast is a bit of motivation to do that. But I could hear this. It's in the key of A. This bit, this tension, A flat in the bass, A on top. I could hear all that in my mind before I even knew where it was on the piano. I had no idea what the key was. I could just hear that. See, I know it perfectly in shape as a melody. And then just that rolling kind of thing came in, which is similar to Liszt's piece, beautiful, called Un Sospiro. Anything by Liszt, you must listen to Cifra playing it. And I will say categorically that for me, nobody plays anything by Liszt better than Cifra, and I will never, ever pivot on that. So I'll always encourage people to listen to Cifra playing anything by Liszt. But of course, other pianists exist. But no, the buck stops with Cifra, as far as I'm concerned, and quite a lot of people actually. So I recommend you going to study Cifra as well. Ciffra. And of course, go and study Liszt. So yeah, the composition stuff is fun as well. So I'm very much looking forward to doing this, doing lots of episodes. Part 2, as I say, is just going to be finishing that list and whatnot, and maybe involving some questions and feedback that I've already got from part 1. And then part 3, we're going to be a bit more free, and I'm going to start to refine it. We're going to get a vibe between us, and we're going to see how it goes. There you go. I don't have a fancy ending like I do for my videos, so on this one I'm just going to use the same one I've used, but maybe somebody can help me write a nice ending and or opening for the podcast. So I'll see you in part 2. All the best, and bye for now.